Good day, good afternoon, good morning to my listeners, wherever you might be tuning in from, whatever time of day you might be listening to this. Welcome to episode 6 of Lawyers with Stories. Hopefully, you've heard the first 5 uh, episodes that we've done. We've had some nice stories, some backstories, and some plenty of lessons. And most importantly, you've picked up that there are real people behind the titles and the glamorous work that you might see them do, that they actually have real problems and they had to overcome a lot to get to where they are today. So, the aim of this podcast is to give you that perspective on the legal profession because, in my opinion, every lawyer has a story and is, they were once little children and then they grew up and they had aspirations and circumstances might have made them pivot their lives in a certain way and the law might have been something they chose or something they didn't. And so we want to bring all of that out and point out to you that it's not a one size fits all and you don't measure yourself by somebody else's journey. You can be inspired by it, but everybody's journey is different because by definition, we are all different people and life treats us differently and we respond to life differently. So today's guest is Veerash Srikison, and she is an advocate like myself and a mediator and very successful in the field of mediation. And of course, I'm not going to rattle off all of her accomplishments, which are many. So, in due course, she will introduce herself. But I'm very pleased to have her on the podcast. And of course, she and I are part of the South African Mediation Circle, which is the part of the World Mediation Circle, started by mediator Vikram in India. So I'm pleased to have her on also as a mediation colleague. That's actually my first love, I would say, or I found it late in life, but lawyering comes second to that. So welcome to the podcast, Veerash, and I'll let you introduce yourself.
Thank you, Lisa, and thank you for that introduction. Hello to everyone that's listening. It is my pleasure to be here today. It's my first podcast, so please bear with me. I'm trying to get used to the format of it and getting the story across that hopefully gives you a little bit of insight into how I got to where I am today and what drives me to stay where I am and not run away from this profession that can turn anyone into a faint-hearted person who has to deal with conflict. So let's get into the conversation, Lisa. I'll be led by your questions, and hopefully we can get a story across.
Okay, cool. So I mean, let's start from where you are now,
Mm-hmm.
and work our way down. So maybe tell us what you're doing now. I know what you're doing. I've done my homework, but our listeners may not know of what you're involved in now exactly. And of course, you can just take us backwards from your current endeavors to how it all started.
Okay. So currently, I have this organization called Fair Practice, and it is an ADR dispute resolutions practice where we focus on everything that's ancillary to litigation. So the mediation, the negotiation. We work with people who do arbitrations, sharing of hearings, disciplinary hearings, everything that's outside the courtroom. We provide services in terms of those dispute resolution forums. And why I focused mainly on ADR is that when you're in the litigation circle, when you're in that fraternity of watching people get into disputes, going to courtrooms, as I was in that field a few years ago, being a pupil, being even a candidate attorney, and watching this from the outside, I came across the term mediation many years ago in 2008, somewhere around there. And I was intrigued by it. I did not know something existed outside the court system. And I delved deeper into it and found out that actually disputants and people in conflict, they use that to have roundtable discussions on a possibility of reaching agreement. And again, that was intriguing to me because that sounded like a negotiation, but there is somebody who is managing this negotiation. Now, negotiation is a fun place to be in. I don't know how much or how many negotiations candidate attorneys or anyone new to the legal field has sat in. It's quite, it's like being part of a puzzle. It's being part of, if anyone's ever read a Nancy Drew story or Hardy Boy story, it's being a part of that and figuring out what is the solution or what is the better outcome. And it brings in a lot of discussion, a lot of working together, a lot of relationship development. And in the end, there is this construct of an agreement that people now walk away with and act on it. Versus what we see not only on the TV, but if you were to go into a court, you'd see the drama behind it. You would see people presenting arguments, well-presented arguments. You'd see people following a format of presentation. And unless you know the intricacies of what is going on, most people, especially those representing themselves, are lost. Whereas if you're sitting at a round table discussion, you're more in control of what the information is being shared and how it's being shared and how it's being used to strategize an outcome. So for me, stepping away from the courtrooms, we're already filled with people, we're already filled with cases and people trying to figure out what is the better outcome. Taking a step back from that made me realize, why don't we put out services where people have direct access to it and can start using it from day one to work towards an agreement? So my organization, Fair Practice, believes in giving that alternative, as they call it, alternative to the litigation, providing that alternative to, let's see how you can reach an outcome before diving into the courtroom drama that exists. So that's what came about, and we just grew from that. It also grew to me becoming someone who trains people into becoming mediators and negotiators. And I can see that people are starting to understand what it means to engage in discussions and reach agreements before deciding to go into the courtroom battlefield. So for me, that's grown into, along with bringing in other people who believe in this, it's grown into becoming a first source of dispute resolution.
Okay. I like how the evolution. I think that's a lot of, that defines a lot of what I do these days, is that, it starts somewhere. It starts with this basic, idea or this basic attraction, and then it just builds, and you start to realize there are more layers to it. And of course, people need training, and people need to be empowered. And so there's public education, there's professional education, where we're educating our peers to understand this field. So I like the fact that it grew like that. And of course, I think Nancy Drew and Hardy Boys. I think that's why I took to Nancy Drew and Hardy Boys when I was a little person, because I think that's probably what informed my detective and my justice, my sense of justice.
I get
and of course,
that.
finding the, like you said, being part of finding the perpetrator. And I think watching Murder, She Wrote, I used to always find the killer, I used to always find the right person and be able to detect them. So I thought that was a nice thing to bring in there. So you mentioned that you were a candidate attorney and you were a pupil.
Yeah, so I started off being, sorry to interrupt you there. I think I just got a bit excited that I did do I did do articles, and I
Mm,
did it with a wonderful attorney. I can't remember her surname because I think it changed in between, but her name is Linda, and
uh-huh.
she opened the doors for me. And I think with candidate attorneys, most of you know this, you send out dozens of letters to apply for articles, and most times you get rejected. And the one person that believes in you, that takes a chance on you, I think for me, would always stay for me the gratitude of her opening the door for me. Because by being a part of her practice, I got introduced to the bar by going in for pre-trial conferences and meeting advocates when we'd sit and do consultations. I was mainly an observer, though, not someone who
Hmm.
contributed to discussions, as candidate attorneys would know. It's
Yeah.
just, and I think that's part of, what you said, the backstory is observing these advocates and their level of knowledge, this level of specialized knowledge, their ability to give the to the interpretations, to just say, case law. They just have it at the tip of their tongues. And watching them, and she introduced me to this life of
Hmm.
being visiting advocates in their chambers. And I
Yeah.
saw the few that stood out, that had this confidence and poise that I wanted for myself. And I believed that being an advocate would bring that out in me. So I started off doing articles, and a few months into it, I was asked to join the bar, and I did, and everything just took off from there. Not
Oh,
without its
lucky you.
challenges, though. Not without its
Lucky
challenges.
you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Lucky me to
Being
get there,
asked to
but
join
not.
the bar. That's the first time I heard that.
Back then it wasn't like it is now. I mean, not to say too much about my age, but it was in the time where you do it for 6 months, you wouldn't get paid.
Yeah.
You had to sacrifice your time to be there, and
Mm,
with me wanting to it was just, if people join the bar, you'll see it. It's just this way. It's a machine that behaves very different to the way it is when you're doing articles.
mm,
It comes out looking like a well-oiled machine where people have purpose in what they're doing, and their focus is on what is in front of them right now. So I saw that, and I loved the mountains of paperwork that they had scattered all over their chambers. The chaos that only they understood, and their focus that they knew exactly where everything was. But if you look at it, their rooms were like libraries. They were sitting
yeah.
inside libraries, and I love
Yeah.
libraries.
Mm,
So that drew me to saying, okay, I do want to be a part of the bar, and I do want to specialize, and I want to have this intimate knowledge of a specific field or area of law. And
mhm.
that's what drew me to joining the bar.
Okay. All right. Something you mentioned about, and something that I've started encouraging even law students to do, is observations. And
Mhm.
you mentioned that you're very curious. And I
Yeah.
think I think as starting out as a junior, even LLB graduate coming into articles or going into pupillage, you got to at least have that curiosity, even if you don't understand. I'm always encouraging curiosity and having, and of course trying to find someone to ask those questions that the seniors might know the answers to, but because you're still finding your way, you need answers to those questions. And I think that's your whole curiosity and just taking the initiative to observe attorneys, advocates, and saying, this is, oh, okay, this is, I like this, or I don't like that. I think it's a very underrated, what can I say? It's an underrated initiative because we're always taught to have, we are given fed information, academic information, theory, exams, practicals, all of those things. But the thing about going out there and saying, okay, there's this power of observation that I have where I can look at the stuff, be curious about it, be curious about how these professionals act in the documents that they work with, and like you're saying, the libraries and the mountains of paperwork, and say, I want that, or I don't want this, or I like this and I don't like that. I think that's something that's very, very important. And that curiosity, I think we lose it, right? We lose it as adults. And I think in mediation, that's something we also encourage for parties to have. Be curious about the other side's position, and try to find out what's underneath all that. So I think that's a very that's a good point there to bring up, that what you did, and of course deciding based on those observations. Okay, I want to be an advocate.
Yeah, and if I want to liken curiosity, just to bring you back to the Nancy Drew and the Hardy Boys and the murder mysteries, this is the mindset we have as lawyers. We want to know what's next. We want to know what's coming. There's more to the story. So you keep reading to finish it. It's what happens now is they have access to murder mysteries on TV. They have access to TV shows. So Sherlock is my favorite, because you watch to know what's coming next. Your curiosity, even though it's scripted, your curiosity remains. It stays with you because you want to watch to the end. You want to follow that series. You want to see where it goes. And that's very much what I find lawyers do, is we don't just take it at face value. We don't just take it at what the person, because you said it is so. That there's that principle in law, because just because you said it doesn't make it true. We have to delve deeper into understanding where is this coming from. And of course, there is that link to mediation, because that's what we do in mediation. We go under the iceberg, as we say. And our curiosity is to get the full story. Tell us the full story. Let us help you find yourself. Let us help you find why you're in this situation or in this dispute. And I think that curiosity wanes, like you said, when people believe the theory that we're taught, the academic life that we've gone through is the be all and end all. And then you get into life, you get into the practice of the legal field. And I don't know if you've seen this, and people start asking questions of, how do I do this? How do I apply this knowledge when I'm standing in court? What do I do? What do I say? What is the document I need to draft? How do I draft it? It's more, it sticks with you more if you take the initiative to research it yourself. Instead of asking someone. Yes, they can guide you. They can definitely guide you, but take the initiative to start the research, to start the drafting yourself, and then ask, am I on the right track? What can I change? And I think you need to hone in and not give up on your own skills.
Yeah. I mean, I'm always quick to point out that the LLB is a start, it's a foundation, right? But there's so much other stuff that, if you look at the LLB, like this, these decorative jewelry racks, like where you just hang the stuff on it, you can look at it like that, and like you gotta like attach the rest of the stuff to it, and in order to make it work, So I think that's something that can't be overstated. So just to go, you obviously joined the bar. You liked the stacks of paper and the libraries. I for one,
the mountains of books.
Yeah, when I joined the law firm and after practice, that's one thing that I really missed, was the access to up-to-date loose leaf binders and up-to-date textbooks and all of that. So in terms of that, the library visual, I'm getting some very nice visuals coming back to me now. So I fully identify there. So just tell us, maybe unpack a little bit your time as, obviously you didn't spend a lot of time as a CA. So maybe just unpack your time at the bar and what that experience was like as a female, as an Indian female, and of course, wanting to specialize in all of those things. So just walk us through that.
So I did did do my pupillage in a year that I actually, as a female, got pregnant. So I was
Not for the faint of heart.
yeah. So I was pregnant for I did it in the latter part of the year, and so I was pregnant during that time that I was doing my pupillage. So my challenges were different
Mm-hmm.
to someone who is there and is part of the race that everybody's in.
Yeah.
What people need to understand is it's not about coming out first. It's
Mm.
about finishing it. But it doesn't
Yes.
matter where on the grid you finish. It's about finishing it competently. And there isn't a first, second, third that you're used to in terms of your other academic life.
Mm.
It is about really about taking in the experience of being a pupil. I mentor
Mm.
pupils as well, and they do send emails about what's going on. They didn't do so well in one exam, but they did better in the others, and they're going back in to try again. And it's that's the point of being in pupillage is to look for people who will support you. It
Yeah.
somehow it became a competitive moment in your legal career when it shouldn't be, because in the end all of you are coming out at the same pace, at the same rate. All of you are finishing off your pupillage at the same time.
Yeah.
So it shouldn't be about, if I don't tell somebody, it means more knowledge for me.
Yeah.
In the same breath, I'm going to say, if you are someone who believes other people should be helping you, take a step back, because once you go into practice, you're on your own. Yes, there
Yeah.
are people you can reach out to. There's your mentors, there's your principals, whomever. But the initiative falls, I always say this, initiative falls on you to
Mm-hmm.
grow your brand, to grow your reputation as someone
Yeah.
who is willing to go the extra mile to understand what it is that they're doing and to put their best foot forward. So my experience, and that is why my experience in pupillage was that I was always grateful for the advocates who were seniors in the profession at that time. And they
Mm-hmm.
actually took time. Yeah, I would catch them in the corridors and I'd say, do you have a moment? Because they'd know you're the pupil.
Yeah.
You get introduced to everybody. And I'd actually ask them, be polite, of course, and ask them, when do you have a moment to just please explain this to me and how does it work in practice? And I was
Yeah.
very lucky to have a handful of people who actually did that for me. They weren't selfish with their knowledge or selfish with their time. So
Mm-hmm.
I appreciated that support. There was also a group of female advocates who took me under their wing, and even though I was not their pupil, they actually showed me the ropes and took me with them to court to watch court processes. And I'm still in contact with some of those advocates. In fact, it was watching a female advocate in chambers is what brought me to understand that you can be a female and be an advocate at the same time and still command a room. And she
Mm-hmm.
was the one who did that final nail in the coffin for me to say, this is where I want to be.
Yeah.
So you just have to be very selective about who you approach and how you approach them. There are
Mm-hmm.
people within the bar that are very helpful, and to this very day some of them are still in contact with me, and they still check up on me to say, how's it going, how I see you're doing this and I see you're doing that, and it's really great to see where you are at now. And
Mm.
it's the time of being a pupil is when you can capitalize on being a pupil to approach people, because
Yeah.
you're there to learn, and they know that once you're out and you become a junior advocate, you have little access to them,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
now you're also chasing briefs as much as they are. So
Yeah.
when you're the pupil, make good use of your time as a pupil to approach, of course, show them what you know already and where you're struggling. Don't just come in there saying, you know what, I don't know what I'm doing, I don't know where I'm at, can you just give me some guidance? Be very specific about what it is that you need help with. And
Mm-hmm.
being Indian, I guess that's what I identify with as. And it's, I would say, it's just your designation on your identity document. To
Yeah.
me, it's really, I am who I am, and my
Mm-hmm.
competence speaks for itself. It's got nothing to do with what I identify as.
Yeah.
So I really just use my competence, I use my capabilities to make people recognize me or to get to know who I am.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think there's a lot of takeaways there, and I think the same can apply, for CAs as with pupils, even though obviously the environments are
The learning curves are different, I guess, versus candidate attorney and a pupil.
So, Virash, as you were saying that it's so important to have mentors and be able to ask for help. And I think your experience during pupillage is even something that, as a candidate attorney, it's also applicable, even though the training environment, the atmosphere is very much is very much different. And I find myself telling them this all the time, that it doesn't matter where you land, right? Because even if you take a little bit longer, you're going to find yourself in the same space, in the same shoes. Eventually you're going to be qualified, you're going to be admitted. And a point that you made that I thought was interesting was you said that you got to take advantage of the time while you're a junior, or while you're a pupil, while you're a CA, because once, and I think, that's something that's unfortunate about our profession, is that after a certain point, it's like every man for himself. And yet, as we know in mediation, we need teamwork, we need collaboration. But in the legal profession, it's literally, worse at the bar, I'd venture to say, because there's no partnership, or there's no, everyone's sole practitioner. And so using that time as a junior, and of course, without making yourself a nuisance, of course, you use that time to ask questions. And something else I like that you said was that you got to be specific about your struggle. And I think for those that are out there that are listening, that want to join the bar or at the bar as pupil advocates, generally there's no open door policy, right? You have to be really brave to approach even the seniors in the corridor, let alone in their chambers. And so when you go there, you don't want to, waffle. You want to say, I don't understand this, and can you help me with this? And I think, as lawyers, generally we like to get to the point. So I think that's a nice takeaway, and I can resonate, or your experience in that sense resonates with me, because I had 3 mentors in my journey, and each one left, or I was moved from one to another for different reasons. But there were also those that took me under their wing, and that's something that, again, unfortunately at the bar is rare, where you have people that take pity on you. But I also remember them. I'm not in contact with them to this day, but I remember them. And I remember those people more than the people the mentor that were assigned to me, because it's those people that sort of took pity, I guess. I think you just have this look about you, and you are, probably look a bit
a lost look, a look of despair, I guess.
Maybe overdressed, and they, maybe some part of their humanity, you start to target that. So I had people, especially when I had a mentor that was a functional alcoholic. And so during my time with him, I wasn't getting that supervision. So another advocate in the group, would let me use his chambers and his books. And so, I mean, you do get those people, but at the same time, you can't wait for that to come to you. You have to ask for help. So I thought that was important. And of course, having having mentors or having a support system. And it's nice to hear that you are mentoring advocates, pupils. I wish more of them would. They don't seem to gravitate toward me for whatever reason. I attract the candidates and attorneys, even though I didn't do articles. But it's nice to hear somebody doing that for pupil advocates. And I think, you know, when they write to you and tell you that they didn't make it here or they were to try again, it's like, you know, from the side, from the side that you are on now.
Mm-hmm.
So you have a different perspective. And so when you see, and I refer to it as the sunk cost fallacy also, where they want to, just keep going because there's the silent competition that's going on, and you really have to bring them back to their uniqueness and get them to ask themselves why they're doing this in the first place, and I think that's a nice place to ask you that. Like, so we've talked about your time at the bar. Now maybe we're going to go into the less, sophisticated phases as a law student. So, I mean, what got you into, what's your why? What got you into studying law to begin with?
I've always had I've always been in a debate team from junior primary, so I always was, calculated in that way in how to formulate an argument. Back then, you just knew, you saw it on TV, and that's what people did. You didn't realize the mountains of work that goes into just writing a paragraph to give an argument. So when we had debate at school, and I'm sure you'd sort of go back to those days, Lisa, is the teacher would give a topic and she'd have one that was for it and one was against it. I was always lucky to get the side that I knew I could argue for or against. And but at that time, again, a long time ago, we didn't have access to as much knowledge as people have now. And you would have to go to a library, you would have to research, you'd have to get a few points across, and then be ready to debate as a team. We would debate as a team. And I enjoyed the opportunity to have a voice to provide an argument. And I think that's also started where my love for child law and my now absolute focus in terms of more of my research is in child law, is having that voice and being able to speak on. And people had to keep quiet and listen to your point of view, because that was what the debate tournament was about. I liked that the way that attention was in a positive. It was the point of saying, well, I'm still a minor, but I have a point of view and somebody's listening to me, and someone needs to hear what I have to say, and then they're going to decide if I'm right or wrong, and they're going to measure me by my argument. And I carried that. I was thinking in my mind, where can I do this for a living? I want to do this forever. I want to be able to have a voice to speak. I want to be able to speak out. And of course, the court provides you with that. The legal field provides you with that. So it started from there, from junior primary. I think it's grade 3 they call it now, grade 4, where you put in these little debate teams, and we get to say like 5 to 10 sentences, but it's impactful. And of course, I've always been part of elocution contests and having to voice myself, a voice on a topic. And I realized this is what I want to do, because I believe if you have a point of view, you should voice it. And I followed that journey into the legal fraternity, into the law field. But I must say, I started off as an art student because I wasn't sure what it is I wanted to do. And I initially started my undergrad. And I was all over the place. And I knew, though, because one of my majors was legal studies, is I wanted to learn everything. I had this opportunity to be at a university, and I wanted to learn everything. So I majored in legal studies and in history. And it just fueled me to say, okay, this is where I need to be, and this is what I want to do. But just to come back quickly to my bar experience, it wasn't all rainbows and sunshine. I was just giving the version of it that this is what it could look like if you do it this way. The background to that is I was quite naive, as I probably still am, because I believe in the goodness of our field. And my naivety unfortunately led me to people who were quite deceptive in their intention to knowing me and were infiltrating my circle and my support system. So when their true intention did come out, it knocked the wind out of me. And it's going to happen to candidate attorneys, and it's going to happen to pupils. You would
Yeah.
think somebody is, even if you're a law student, you would think that people are joining you or they're part of your circle because they support you and they're going through this journey with you. It's not always the case. So
Yeah.
when this happens, when you get the wind knocked out of you, like you mentioned with my mentees going through an exam and then finding out, oof, I just failed, or I need to do a supplementary, or I need to do it again, or take the practical again, you start to question yourself and your own capabilities. And you need to understand that, yes, you do need to work harder. And when you do the second or third time, it sticks with you. The information sticks in your brain. You will realize, you'll realize that as you go down through the field, how much of that knowledge means to you now. But when you're faced with people that are there to derail your progress, you need to realize it's not about you, it's about them. That's their
Yeah.
mode of survival, to trample on other people,
Yeah.
to dim their light. And it's their insecurities, not yours. So
Yeah.
you have to be the driver of your success. You have to be the driver of your journey and where you want to take it. So if there's an opportunity to go down a path, to be around people who support you, please take them up on it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean I think that's something that, especially when you're starting off in this field, it's like, you kind of, there's this assumption, and I think it goes for everyone that, it's an inherent profession. So when you go in, even as a junior or an entry level practitioner, you think that everybody is the same, and you can trust them, and I also tell them what you advise your mentees is that it's not you, it's them,
Yeah.
right? And I think the worst thing you can do is gaslight yourself and say, I should have known, I could have known, maybe if I didn't say it like this. And you just have to realize that unfortunately these kinds of people are in the majority, and if anything, that experience should teach you to be more discerning.
Yeah.
And I think being naive in general, I think at any stage when we're starting something new, we just trust human beings. And so it's like almost like say the 3-month rule in relationships, where you got to give it 3 months and then make a proper assessment of the other person. And often I think because it's such a daunting profession, even the bar, you tend to latch on to anybody that even purports to help you, and you think that they have your best your best interest at heart. And I'm glad you brought that out, because sort of like the higher up you go, the more you got to be on the lookout for people like this who will initially ingratiate themselves. And I find myself warning some people, or warning people that I talk to, against certain influential people, that they might get caught in the headlights, like deer in headlights, and say, I've had dealings with this person, and it's not, all is not as it seems, so just be wary. So I think even like in our mentorship capacities as well, if we, without gossiping, obviously without slandering, we just say, just be on your guard, be cautious. Or it's a given that you're going to encounter a certain type of person in the legal profession, so be on the lookout for it, and don't be surprised. Here are some coping strategies, or some ways to navigate, or some ways to figure out what kind of person they are. So I'm glad you brought that out. And just going back to your childhood, or your motivations for studying law, I think you were the second person in 6 episodes that actually knew what they wanted to do at primary school level. I had no idea. I had a big mouth. That's all. Like, if something had to be said, I said it, and I'd often get scolded for it. But the thing is, I saw it in a specific way, and I felt that it had to be said. But at no point did I say, did I realize I'd be a good fit for a career in law. And I think that's why it worked out for me eventually, because I sort of had you can say, the soft skills to make it in the profession. But I mean, I resonate completely with that. We had speech contests. We didn't have debate teams. We had speech contests, and I think it's so important um, for juniors and even entry-level practitioners or those that are thinking of joining the profession, is that having a voice is important, but of course it's how you put forth your view that's important. And it's not about being contentious. It's being comfortable in saying what you need to say, and of course backing it up with intelligent reasoning and things like that. I think where we often get mischaracterized, or I don't know, I think it's in the Indian community where they'll say, oh, like, she's so feisty and assertive and outspoken, oh, she'll make a good lawyer. And it's not necessarily the case. Like, the flip side it isn't always true that because you are outspoken that you'll make a good lawyer, or that that's what's needed. Sometimes you might have to learn, like you said, through those contests and competitions, elocution classes, how to speak, how to debate. But I think if, as learning it as early as possible, that you have a voice, and that, provided you're speaking something that makes sense and is intelligent, like, nobody can tell you anything or nobody can shut you down. I think that's a good point, because I don't know, you said you observed that female advocate, and that sort of sealed it for you in terms of your career as an advocate. But I think, observing people and, watching how they, construct their arguments, how they think on their feet, I think it's also very important in terms of finding your feet, finding your voice in a courtroom. And I tell people also, you can't always prepare for everything that's going to happen in court. There are going to be times when you're going to have to literally speak off the cuff and think on your feet. And I think that comes from a place that ideally it should come from a place of, no, I'm comfortable with myself and my voice. And I believe that whatever's going to come out of my mouth is going to make sense. I think that's something that obviously university doesn't teach us, law school doesn't teach us. And so, like you mentioned earlier, people are asking, what do I say? How do I say it?
Yeah.
How do I stand, or what do I wear? The whole thing about the profession is speaking up. Like you said, that's what made you so passionate about family law, and specifically children. I mean, those are little people that don't have a voice. I mean, no one really takes children seriously. And so the quicker we do that for ourselves, if we're aspiring lawyers or studying law or training, is that whole, I got to be comfortable with what I'm saying, and I've got to make myself heard. And even if I do get put down, which we know does happen in court, because you'll get a judicial challenge from the bench, like, you're still confident. So I think that's a very good point to bring out. And of course, your university experience. Myself, my first choice would have been like music or drama or something.
Yeah.
But so at least you started off in arts. Actually, I would have probably majored in English, and I was actually sad to give it up when my electives came to an end. I had to give it up and go fully legal from third year. But I think the fact that you had that, you knew you had that ability, you had the voice, you wanted to use your voice. And I think university probably just added to that, added the theory. Like, okay, I have a voice now. This is what I can use it for. This is going to be the theoretical underpinning, you know, for what I'm going to say, because you can't just go in a court and say what you want to say. You know, you have to. It's an informed legal speech that you have to give. So maybe just as we are coming to an end, and the time went so quickly, maybe some things that you could have, or you would tell yourself now if you were, if you speak to your younger self, um, studying, your first year at university and being where you are now, obviously it's been a highly nuanced journey. I don't think we've unpacked the half of it, but like, what's the some stuff that you would tell yourself, your first year self? So, at this point, what advice would you give to your first year self? And of course, in essence, give it to those that are just starting out their law degree.
For me, the privilege, I think we underestimate the privilege of sitting in law school or in classes towards a law degree.
Yeah.
I believe that there's this newfound freedom when students join the university, and they pay more attention to that freedom than they do their academic life. And I think for me, that opportunity you have to be sitting in their class to learning to obtain this degree, take it seriously. Take that academic part of it seriously. You don't want to get left behind. You shouldn't give people a reason to leave you behind. So focus on your studies. It is the easiest part of your profession right now. It's there in front of you. It's spoon fed to you. Learn it. Focus on it. If you I wish I could go back and redo some of the courses I didn't give as much attention to back in the day, and I wish I could redo it and do it again and give it the amount of focus and attention. Your lecturers know how much you're going to need this theory knowledge outside of the degree, because once you leave, it's practical. It's completely practical. You need to apply that knowledge practically. If you were just skimming past, you were just making it, you were just attending the lectures, some of it, writing the exams, getting your 50s and 60s. You weren't really giving it that much attention. All you wanted to do was pass. And then you go out into the field and you wonder, what is going on? I'm not getting anything. I'm not going anywhere with this. I'm sending out letters for articles. I'm getting left behind. In addition to focusing on your academics, focus on your confidence. It is underestimated the level of confidence you need to have in yourself, the belief in yourself, that you can articulate how far you want to take this journey in the legal profession, to yourself, your mental health in yourself, your belief in yourself, that this is where I want to go. I want to make a success out of it. I am the best at it. When, like you said, when people said you're younger, oh, you've got a big mouth, you're going to be a good lawyer. Well, at least they believed you're going to be good. So those people believed you're going to be good. So be good. You don't have to be the best. Start off by being good, being good at what you're doing, what's in front of you. And again, another don't underestimate the power of written communication. Learn to write properly. Learn to write in a way that it sends out the message in a very precise way. I also teach negotiation skills, and when I teach negotiation, I tell people to ask for what you want. And in order to know what you want, you need to prepare to know what you want. You got to be prepared before you enter into negotiation, before you enter into a courtroom. So like you said, when you're standing on your feet and somebody throws a curveball question to you, you need to be able in your brain figure out, what is my response to this? Because I prepared for this. If I were unprepared, I wouldn't know how to logically reply to this question. And don't be afraid to say, I need more time to get back to you with that answer. You don't have, not all of us have the answers on our fingertips, but be confident to apply your mind to say, I know I can figure out this answer. I just need more time for it. So it's that confidence that you have in yourself, that it comes from understanding I have this opportunity, I'm on this path, and I need to make the
Mm,
best of it. It is a difficult path because it's a saturated environment. There's competition for work. You may
mm,
end up wanting to become your own practitioner for your own practice, and then
mm,
it is even harder work because you don't sometimes get to pay yourself. You don't get leave. Nobody says what a good job you've done. So
mm,
it's about the person you are now becoming. It's the person you're developing. It's the person that's going to evolve into who do you want to be.
mm.
There's a difference between being confident and being arrogant. Don't
Yeah,
be arrogant. Be confident. Show your humility. Yeah, you might be really good at what you do. And there may be places where you need to put your foot down and remind people of how good you are. But there's not a place for arrogance. So arrogance for me, when I see people arrogant in the industry, it's misplaced. It's more
mm,
again feeding their insecurity because they sort of use it as a way to bully you to believe they are better than you. And
yeah,
I see it a lot. I encounter it a lot. And you remain just your calm, confident self and remind them of
mm,
what the actual truth, what is the actual fact, what is the actual
mm,
research. That is why I say to people, prepare where you are right now in your life, prepare for your next move. Always prepare.
yeah,
You cannot fault preparation. Sit back. You need to sit back and think. Have time for your thoughts. I know that we are all in survival mode. I know that. I know how difficult it is to say, I wish I had the luxury of time to sit and think. You do. Take a moment, take 5 minutes even, to just sit down and know what it is you want to do next. And then
yeah.
tell yourself, this is what I'm going for. So just taking a break, finding that balance in your life for yourself, and to think about your progress.
Mm. I fully endorse all of that, and I cannot myself bang louder about planning, especially you know, when I mentor people that are in their third year of university. And
Mm-hmm.
actually, that's the group I actually prefer. I prefer to work with because I'm like, you still at university, so you can get it together now.
Yeah.
And I'm actually working with somebody at the moment, and it's the payback is knowing that this person is going to have a blueprint for when they get out of university. Because
Yeah.
the moment, like you said, you don't individualize the journey and you take it for granted that you're having access to world-class lecturers and facilities, and you don't realize the power that's in your hands to take charge of your journey and to say it's not going to be the same as everyone else's. The quicker you settle that, the better. Then I can receive less DMs about, my friend got articles, I didn't, is something wrong with me. The
Oh,
quicker
wow.
you settle that your journey is not going to be the same as your friend, that
Yeah.
your paths will diverge at graduation, the better. The sooner you come to terms with that, the better. And of course, you have to sit from as maybe second year. First year is time to just adjust. Maybe from your second year, going into your third year, sit and plan. You got to plan for what university will not tell you about.
Yeah.
That's something I'm always, you've got all that freedom. You don't have the despondency of being graduated and then trying to figure all that out. And that's
Mm-hmm.
what it usually comes to. And of course, I find myself being very scared for their mental health because ultimately it impacts on that. And then you get the question, was law even worth it? And, what's the use and all of those things. And I think it's so important to settle all of those things, your motivation, the uniqueness of your journey early on as a student, as early as possible at university. You settle all of those things that for you are true and that you cannot externalize and compare yourself to other people. And just touching on what you said about written communication, that's something I also encounter on almost on a daily basis. And as as someone who's always had, like I said, my mouth was big, so it made I had my ducks in a row in my head. So I'm
Yeah.
always like, my birthstone is sapphire, and it stands for clear thinking. I remember thinking when I first discovered that, I thought, hey, that's true, And so for me, having all of that organized in my head and knowing what I want to say, why I want to say it, who I don't like, why I don't like them, who I'm friends with, and why I'm their friend. I always had those things like pretty much sorted out. And I think what I also encounter with, like I'm saying, with those that are post graduation, or they pass their undergrad, and is that the head is muddled. And often it doesn't take very much for me to say, this is the way to go. And for some people, all I have to say is, you know what you need to do. And then they'll just say, yeah, I know what I need to do. And they go and do it. So it's this, I think when our heads are muddled, and I think it could be because of, nowadays there are lots of distractions, there's overstimulation, so again, it's up to us, and of course, younger people don't have little to no excuse to shut out all the overstimulation and say, my life is in my hands, my career is in my hands, my mental health is in my hands. So if I don't stop overstimulating myself and, texting in the middle of the night and scrolling Instagram mindlessly, the sooner I stop doing that, then my head's going to be less muddled. And of course, I need to learn how to sleep. I'm a sleep advocate amongst the other kinds of advocacy that I do. So, I need to get good sleep because it's going to age me. So I need to put the phone off, put the phone down at a certain point in the evening. The sooner they figure that out, then of course, hopefully we're going to be getting less DMs about, I want to give up. I want to throw in the towel. And I'm going for therapy during articles. I mean, nothing breaks my heart more. And to think of the amount of power in your hands to determine your journey and just to make choices and say no and set boundaries and say, I'm not going to let a system dictate to me. I'm going to be my kind of practitioner, It's things like that. And I think the younger you figure that out, the better, maybe in your second year, or maybe even before you start university. That's a very rare bunch where you just, your compass is set. So I think that's something all of us, even though I was pretty dead set and focused at university, there are certainly things that I would tell my younger self to do differently. And I think I do that in my mentorships to say, yeah, I did it a certain way, and it came to this point, and I appear successful, but I could have done it better, and here's the better way. So I think when we mentor others, we get to tell them, that there's a better way. We might be successful, but there's a better way to get to where you want to be. There's a healthier way to do it. So,
And
I
in a
think on that
way,
note,
yeah, and in a way, learn from my mistakes and my regrets, because
absolutely,
had I had that opportunity, if I was sitting in your place right now, this is what I would do. You speak to them from a level of a perspective of what it looks like on the other side. And
yeah,
I also mentor teenagers, and now my son as well is a teenager, and I say to them, there's no plan A or B or C. There's plan A, B, C, D, E. And you work
yeah,
backwards from that. So you're never lost. You're never
yeah,
in
exactly,
despair.
yeah,
If plan A is not working, move on to the other plans, and somehow those paths will diverge to get you to plan A.
yeah,
You will get there. You just need to take a step back. And I know in this age of where everything is electronically stored and saved and written, I actually encourage people to get a book and a pen, an actual book and a pen.
yeah,
And on those moments when you are so lost, when you are on your knees wondering, what on earth am I going to do with this results, or I've been rejected, or whatever it is, go back to that book. Open that book
yeah.
and start looking at those plan A, B, C, D, E, F, whatever it is that you had,
Mm-hmm.
and pick something there, focus on it and get to it. And
Yeah.
then it really does shift your mindset, that once you have a direction, and no matter how small that step is, it really takes the focus away from feeling I failed. We don't fail, we just change our direction. It's just the
Yeah.
way we are built. Don't
Yeah.
think you failed, just change the way you think about what the next
Hmm.
step is going to be. So for me,
Yeah.
that is the reality. I know people say, but I'm in the situation where I've got no finances, I've got nothing, I've got no support. It will come to you in the direction that you take. It will. There's always
Yeah.
someone who believes in you. There is always someone
Yeah.
that believes.
Yeah. And I think I'm off, like I say, I'm faced with all of these kinds of messages that come. And it's very hopeless. And, I've tried everything and nothing is working out. And I just dealt, I was communicating with someone today because the results came out last night. And
Mm-hmm.
she's like, she tried everything and it's not working. And I'm like, okay, maybe you're going about it in the wrong way. There's always something to do. There's always a choice. There's always somebody to ask for help. There's always someone to talk to. And in that sense, I offer myself out as well, just kind of, as a sounding board here and there. But, you know, if you don't have a plan, then of course the disappointment is going to be unmitigated. But when you have that plan, and I say it's never too late to start planning. So even if
Yeah.
you come to the point of despair, now should be a good time to give you a bit of a nudge in the butt and say, okay, now I've got to get back to the drawing board
Yeah.
because I was just allowing myself to move with the tide of the system and it hasn't worked. So now I'm taking the power back. So now what can I do? Because, you know, there is, I mean, you can always come back to your dream. You can always come back, and I tell people they're young. So they're younger than I am. So they can go for 5 years into another field, come back, and they'll still be young, and uh, so there's always, you don't have to give up on the dream. Just hit pause and do something else. I say I have 25 backup plans, you
Yeah.
know, plan all the way to plan Z. Do because you will feel disappointed. And I think at the time of this recording, the results came out, and so there are people that will be feeling, and hopefully, it doesn't result in anything catastrophic, but there will be people feeling this way, like hopeless, dead end, and especially where you've plugged in a lot of resources. And I think to those people, I would say now's the time to go back to the drawing board.
Mm-hmm.
If you didn't have a board to begin with, or like you're saying, Veerash, if you were not journaling or writing or planning, now's the time to take time out. Exams are done. Lock yourself away for a day. Make yourself unreachable and just brainstorm. Think it out.
Yeah.
Get your
Yeah.
options. Create options for yourself. I know in negotiation, right?
Yeah.
I'm also
Talking the
a
language.
student of that. You
Yeah.
gotta create what mutually satisfying options and all of that. So you have to start creating the options. You have to stop receiving what is otherwise from a very limited pool. You got to start opening it out. Now you got to start opening out your options and saying, okay, I need to spread my tentacles far and wide. So I think for those that are listening, it's not too late to start planning. And even if you're a law student, we encourage you to start planning now. Plan various contingencies,
Mm-hmm.
so that when you come to that point of disappointment, maybe you didn't finish in the allotted time for your degree, like I didn't finish in 4 years, or you get rejected from articles and you've got nowhere to go. If you have a plan, your future self, your graduate self will thank you for mitigating the disappointment. Yes, you will feel disappointed, but you got that comfort of knowing that you've got that file, you've got that, if it's on your computer or it's a hard copy, you've got that file, you've got that book, that, man, you got to go back and say, wow, I actually foresaw this, and now I can take something out of here and put it into action. And then, of course, everything doesn't seem so hopeless. So it's actually a very hopeful note to
Yeah.
land the plane, Veerash.
Yeah, it's always about me saying, bring back the control to yourself. You're the only one who has control over yourself, and you still have breath in you. You still have life in you. It's not the end. Failure is not the end. There is the next
Yeah,
step. You move to the next thing. So take
yeah.
control, take full control of your life. That's what I would like
And
to say. My advice.
yeah, and I think don't identify as your failure, you know.
Mm,
So that's something that we are famous for doing, is we label ourselves as failures. And myself, I learned the power of unlabeling myself, as of, things happen to you, you are not what happens to you. So um so if you failed, and of course I always tell students, life gets harder and more complicated. So if you know how to navigate this phase and you build some muscle and some resilience, then when the harder stuff comes,
yeah.
it's not gonna swallow you. So be encouraged. So thank you, Virash, for your time, extra time we took,
Thank you for
um,
having me.
and sharing your insights. I think it was more of a mentorship conversation.
I
Indeed.
hope so. Because that's what I do all the time. And I guess being a mediator, we are constantly keeping people in the positive and giving them, pushing them towards the right direction and guiding people to you see the positive in this outcome. See, this is what you did say to me, that you're here for the candidate attorneys. Not to give up, not to compare themselves to other people. And I think that's a fantastic job that you're doing, is to you're giving them that platform of support, and it's a landing, it's a sounding board and a landing place for them to come to when they are in despair. So I think that you give them that opportunity to say you're not alone, and I'm proud of what you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you. I think for me it's less about what I do, and it's like who I am. So if I am tempted on some days to just pull the covers over my head and stay there, I can't do that. Something will, like, that's not who I am, So I really, as distressing as it can be on days, but I take that as the occupational hazard of the job. But it's, at the end of the day, it's something that is just me. I am that kind of person, and I think that's probably what also has drawn me into the mediation field, is just that empathy and wanting to be in people's corners. And so thank you for your affirmation. You are technically my senior, so
Yeah.
I take it on that level as well. But yeah, I mean, I know your calendar is booked crazy, but
Mm.
I definitely want to have you back, um, and just unpack, I think, more, maybe from a mentorship perspective, since the conversation evolved like that. Maybe we can talk about our various mentorship experiences and sort of the nuggets out of that. So I would love to have you back. I don't think the extent of your journey has been done justice to in this conversation, but it's been a good one anyhow. So thank,
Thank you, Lisa.
so thank you for your time. And listeners, you can catch Virash, or you can go to her website, www.fairpractice.co.za. I think that's your main information portal.
Mhm.
You are on LinkedIn, if I'm not mistaken, but not as active. Yeah.
No, I don't have time. Sorry, I don't have time to update myself.
Okay, so don't catch her on LinkedIn. You can go to her website, and of course you can see all the various. And please participate in the training. Um, Firash is also a trainer, negotiation, mediation, and I think ADR in general. So if you want to learn more about mediation and maybe explore that as a career path, you can go and learn more on the website and maybe reach out via that portal. So Thank you for listening, everyone. And when you do listen to this, give it a good review if you liked it. It's going to be up on Spotify probably in the next month, and that'll be June. And you can also catch it on my YouTube channel at Law Mom Lisa. I also upload my podcast episodes there. So thank you so much for listening, and I will chat with my next guest, with you as the audience, in the next episode.